Welcome back to the Short Game Podcast. It is Friday, March 20th. We are closing out the Untouchable Operator week. You completely fall apart the second your routine gets disrupted. If you get a hard assignment at work, or if your plan for the day changes, you get stressed out and complain. You have built a life that requires perfect, comfortable conditions just to function. You are completely fragile. If you want to actually win, you cannot just build a life that survives chaos. You have to build a life that actually gets stronger because of it. Today we are reading the ultimate cheat code for dealing with reality, Antifragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. We are going to talk about why avoiding stress is the fastest way to make yourself weak. When a supply chain breaks at NexYear, it is a shock to the system. But we do not just fix the problem and move on. We use that failure to rebuild a completely new logistics route that makes the entire company faster and more lethal than before. An operator uses chaos as fuel. Let's close out the week.
What's your name?
My name is Tom Shelby.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
King Ragnar. That is my name.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
I'm Batman.
This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
My name is Asax Schrader.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Antonio Montana.
My name is Patrick Payne.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Gus.
Welcome to episode 30 of the Untouchable Operator Week. I am your host, Drew, and today we are getting into something that is going to completely rewire how you look at your life, your business, and your own physical body. Grab a beer, sit down, and listen up, because I am about to tell you why your current life strategy is an absolute joke. Look around you. Look at the people you interact with every single day. Everyone is desperately obsessed with finding comfort. They want the safe job, the quiet neighborhood, the predictable morning routine, and the easiest possible path from Monday to Friday. They want an app for everything, so they never have to wait in line, and they want a pill for every minor ache, so they never have to feel pain. I constantly hear people talking about protecting their peace and setting boundaries. That is just therapy speak for running away from a challenge. But what happens when that perfectly curated bubble-wrapped reality gets a tiny little pinprick? What happens when the Wi-Fi goes down, or the flight gets delayed, or the boss drops a heavy assignment on their desk at 4 p.m. on a Friday? They completely fall apart. They have a massive meltdown because they have built a life that requires absolutely perfect conditions just to function. If your routine shatters the second life throws a curveball, you are not successful. You are incredibly, dangerously vulnerable. You are soft, and you are fragile. You think you are building a safe life, but you are actually just making yourself completely defenseless against the chaos of the real world. Today we are diving deep into a book that changed my life, called Antifragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Taleb is a former trader, a brilliant guy, and he breaks down the world into 3 distinct categories. Most people mistakenly think the exact opposite of fragile is robust or solid. If you go to the post office and send a package full of crystal champagne glasses, you stamp fragile on the box. That tells the mailman that the package needs total peace and quiet because any shock or drop will destroy it. So, what is the exact opposite of that fragile package? People say it is a bowling ball or a giant rock, but a rock does not care if you drop it. A rock just stays exactly the same. That is not the opposite of fragile. That is just robust or resilient. The robust resists shocks and stays exactly the same, which is fine, but it does not get better. The true opposite of fragile would be a package that you stamp with "please mishandle" in big red letters. It would be a package that actually upgrades its contents every time the delivery guy kicks it, drops it, or throws it into the back of the truck. It thrives and grows when exposed to volatility, randomness, disorder, and stressors. Taleb could not find a word in the English language for this concept, so he invented one. He called it antifragile. Antifragility is beyond resilience or robustness. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same, but the antifragile actually gets better. This is the secret to everything that survives and thrives in the history of the universe. Evolution, culture, ideas, revolutions, and even our own existence as a species are all the result of anti-fragility. Let us break this down further, because you need to understand the difference between the mechanical and the organic. Think of a washing machine. A washing machine is a mechanical contraption. If you use it every single day, it will eventually wear down and break. It suffers from material fatigue. It never heals itself, and it certainly does not get better with use. Now think about your own body or your cat. Your body is organic, and it is a complex system. If you never use your body, if you just lie in bed for a month straight, your muscles will literally atrophy and you will become sick. Complex systems like the human body are weakened and can even be killed when they are completely deprived of stressors. Taleb talks about Wolff's Law, which shows that your bones actually get denser and stronger when episodic stress, like gravity or heavy lifting, is applied to them. If you lift heavy weights, your bones and muscles tear slightly, but they overcompensate and grow back bigger and harder. Your body gets information about the environment, not through your brain, but through physical stress. Stressors are literal information. When you lift a heavy rock, your body receives a message that says we might need to lift something even heavier tomorrow, so we better upgrade the system. The anti-fragile system requires the stress to survive. It overcompensates in anticipation of a worse outcome. Trying to eliminate stress from your life is literally starving your body and your mind of the fuel it needs to grow. It is like poisoning yourself with a lethal dose of comfort. Taleb uses some badass ancient mythology to explain this, and I want you to picture this. First, you have the sword of Damocles. Damocles was a courtier who was allowed to enjoy a massive banquet, but there was a catch. A heavy sword was dangling right over his head, tied by a single horse's hair. Damocles is the ultimate example of the fragile. It is only a matter of time before that hair snaps under the pressure, and the sword splits his skull. That is what happens when you build a life that relies on everything going perfectly. Then you have the phoenix. The phoenix is a mythical bird that burns to ashes and then is reborn. From those exact same ashes, it always returns to its initial state. That is robust. But then you have the hydra. The hydra is a terrifying serpent-like beast from Greek mythology. Every time you take a sword and chop off one of the hydra's heads, 2 more heads grow back in its place. Harm is exactly what it likes. The hydra is anti-fragile. When you face adversity, do you sit there and wait for the sword to drop? Do you just bounce back to normal like the phoenix? Or do you grow 2 new heads and become twice as lethal? This overcompensation is everywhere in nature. If you get a vaccine, you inject a tiny amount of poison to build immunity, making you stronger overall. This process is called Mithridization, named after a king who did exactly that. The problem is that people suffer from what Taleb calls domain dependence. They understand that lifting weights makes them stronger, but they do not transfer that concept to the rest of their socioeconomic life. They go to the gym to tear their muscles, and then they get furious when they have to deal with a delayed flight or a difficult conversation. Society today completely hates the hydra, and it absolutely hates stressors. We are living in an era of modernity where the main goal is to systematically smooth out all the jagged edges of the world. We try to stifle volatility and eliminate all the natural friction of life. We put everything in a Procrustean bed of cushy, comfortable, and ultimately harmful modernity. We think that randomness is risky and that we can eliminate risk by eliminating randomness, but this is the biggest lie you have ever been sold. When you artificially suppress volatility, you do not make things safer. You just make them incredibly vulnerable to a massive, unexpected blow-up. Taleb calls this the Great Turkey Problem. Imagine a turkey on a farm. Every single day, the butcher comes out and feeds the turkey. The turkey's analysts look at the historical data and conclude with absolute statistical confidence that butchers love turkeys. The turkey's life is perfectly smooth, predictable, and completely free of stress. Then, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving arrives. The butcher comes out holding an axe. This is a black swan event for the turkey. Because the turkey lived a life devoid of stress, it had absolutely no idea that a catastrophic failure was coming. If you live your life trying to avoid all discomfort, you are the turkey. You are substituting a bunch of small, manageable stressors for one giant, fatal blow. Small variations and small stressors are like a vaccine against massive failure. Nature is the best expert at managing rare events, and it got here without any command and control instruction from a completely detached director. Another massive concept from the book is how we handle errors. When you are fragile, you depend on things following an exact planned course, with absolutely zero deviation. But when you are anti-fragile, you actually want deviations, because most of them will bring you helpful information. Think about the aviation industry. Every plane crash brings the industry closer to safety and makes the next flight safer. Airlines learn. because they are anti-fragile and set up to exploit small errors. But the economic system is the exact opposite. Every bank crash makes the next one more likely because the errors spread and compound. You need to build a life that looks like aviation, where your small mistakes actually upgrade your overall system. Taleb suggests doing this through what he calls the barbell strategy. The barbell is a dual strategy, a combination of two extremes kept completely separate with absolutely nothing in the middle. You play it insanely safe in some areas to protect yourself from ruin, and you take massive risk in other areas where the downside is capped. It is extreme risk aversion on one side and extreme risk loving on the other. You clip your downside to protect from extreme harm, and you let the upside take care of itself. Antifragility is the combination of aggressiveness plus paranoia. You do not want to be in the moderate middle where you slowly bleed out from hidden risks. Now, let me bring this into the real world, my world. At NexYear, we are in the business of building things, operating at a high level, and dealing with insane logistics. I am not just reading books, I am running a company with my day one crew. When you are scaling a company, you are going to encounter massive friction. Sometimes a vendor completely screws up a custom luxury order. Sometimes a massive shipping route goes down because of a storm or a strike, and everything grinds to a halt. Most business owners would completely panic. They would cry about it, stress out, and try to just get things back to normal. They would try to be the phoenix, just surviving the shock to fight another day. But we are operators, and NexYear is an anti-fragile machine. When a logistical network fails, it is a massive shock to our system. But I do not just fix the immediate problem and go back to sleep. I look at the failure as a massive dose of necessary information. I rebuild the entire logistics network from the ground up, so that specific point of failure can never, ever happen again. I fire the incompetent vendor and build a diversified supply chain with 3 different backups. That chaos, that friction, actually forces NexYear to become faster, smarter, and more lethal in the marketplace. We do not just survive the shipping delay. We build a system that absolutely dominates because of it. Every time the market throws a curveball, our competitors take a hit and bleed out. But we eat the damage, adapt, and steal their market share. Our company acts exactly like the Hydra, growing 2 new supply routes every time one gets cut off. The failures of individual components actually guarantee the survival and the dominance of the overall machine. This brings me to the universal sovereign standard for anyone listening to this. I do not care if you are an athlete, a student, an employee, or an entrepreneur. An untouchable operator does not hide from stress. You cannot treat your life like a fragile teacup. You have to actively seek out the friction that forces you to adapt and grow. If you are in the gym, you have to push the muscle to the point of failure so it comes back thicker. If you are in the boardroom, you have to take the hard assignments that make you sweat, because that is how you build an untouchable skill set. If you are in a relationship, you have to lean into the difficult conversations, because avoiding them just builds up a hidden reservoir of resentment that will blow up later. Stop trying to sanitize your environment. Stop whining about bad drivers, incompetent coworkers, and unfair circumstances. Those things are the weights on the barbell. Those things are the wind that extinguishes a candle but energizes a fire. You have to be the fire, and you have to wish for the wind. You want to use the chaos, not hide from it. Every single inconvenience is a piece of data that you can use to upgrade your personal operating system. If your routine breaks down when you travel, your routine was fragile. If your fitness disappears when you miss a single week of your perfectly structured diet, your fitness was fragile. You have to stop viewing challenges as unfair punishments. The universe is not out to get you. The universe is just providing the resistance you need to carve out a stronger version of yourself. Every time you feel the burn in your lungs during a run, that is your body breaking down so it can build back a larger cardiovascular capacity. So, here is your absolute directive for the week. Look at the areas of your life where you are playing it entirely too safe. Look at where you are acting like a fat, happy turkey. Identify the places where you are trying to eliminate all the stressors and all the risks. Stop trying to make your life easier. Comfort is an illusion that makes you weak. Start making yourself harder to kill. Build a life that gets better when people attack it. Build a career that gets stronger when the economy takes a massive hit. Do not run from the chaos, because the chaos is the only thing that can actually make you great. Be the Hydra, not the teacup. That is how you win, and that is how you become an untouchable operator. I will see you guys next week. stay lethal.